In my case, I mean, I built a website out of my spare bedroom before I launched. And then one day, nervous as heck, I pushed the button to turn it live and I emailed all my friends and said, hey, guess what? I just started a property management company, right? And it was like, I remember, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to really, is this going to be me moving forward, right? There was this new launch into this brand new area that, and I remember that first morning where I pushed the button, I said, okay, it's a go, right? And immediately started getting, responses and people coming to us just because of that.
Today I'm speaking with Bob Preston, former owner of North County Property Group. Bob built North County Property Group from the ground up and eventually sold it for a multiple seven-figure exit to Pure Property Management in 2023. Today I'm going to be speaking with Bob about the exact steps he would take if he were starting over and starting a property management company from scratch without any of his current connections in the industry. Bob and I actually built an entire course on this called Property Management Blueprint, where we break down the exact steps to get to 100 doors. Today, we'll cover a few takeaways from that, but if you want the full roadmap, check out propertymanagementblueprint.co. And without further ado, let's get to it so you can start to learn from Bob and what he would do if he was starting a property management company from scratch in today's current market.
I'm Bob Preston. I have been in the property management industry, gosh, for about 15 years. Yeah, I sort of had a previous career and reinvented myself because I didn't want to travel as much. I was a former Silicon Valley guy and had some success in Silicon Valley, taking a couple of different companies public. Had a new daughter at home after that and kind of got sick of the traveling. So I wanted to get into something that could keep me at home a little bit more. And always enjoyed rental properties, managing properties, taking care of properties. So I thought, hey, why don't I step into property management? I've had my broker's license for many, many years. Anyway, that's a quick backdrop on how I got into it. And I started a company in the San Diego area, North County, San Diego, called North County Property Group. Hence the name. I mean, I focused on the North County part. I know we'll probably talk about this later, the North County area of San Diego, because it didn't have much competition. So I picked that market for that very reason. Started the company on my own with my own resources, kind of one brick at a time type thing, built it to a value of over 700 doors. And then 3 years ago, decided, hey, I want to step out of this and was able to negotiate a seven-figure exit sale with Pure Property Management. And then I stayed with Pure for about another year and a half after that, and then just decided, hey, it's time for me to step away. So I've been consulting ever since then, but and doing my podcast and whatnot. And we're going to talk about this new venture we have, Property Management Blueprint, which is an online course. We're going to talk about that here in a minute as well. Along the way through my career, though, in building North County Property Group, I was also very involved in the NARPM organization. I was president of the Cal NARPM chapter, California State chapter, and also served on the national board as a VP of the Southwestern region. So that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. So no shortage of experience in property management.
Yeah, right.
So we're going to take a spin on what these usual calls are like. What I'd really like to talk about today is how would you approach starting a property management company if you had to start from scratch? You had no previous history in property management where you have,
Yeah,
past owners that you can reach out to that might be interested in having you manage a property. So let's pretend that all of that is gone.
sure.
At the
Yeah.
highest level, let's say, how
Uh-huh.
would you approach it?
Well, that's a really good question. So, I was fortunate that because my background and whatnot, I had the resources to kind of fund my own venture, right? So, but having said that, I sort of jumped in, if you will, and kind of made it up as I went along. Probably not the best way to start a property management company, not going to lie. So, honestly, this may sound counterintuitive, but I'd probably slow down a little bit before I jumped in and learned a bit more and had a better bird's eye view of what this was going to be like before I jumped in. I've always been kind of a risk taker, so In my case, I kind of rolled the dice and went for it, but I'm not sure looking back on it that was necessarily the best approach. Also, I would slow down a bit, but also join like the NARPM organization right away. I always viewed NARPM as something that I didn't have time for. And boy, was I completely wrong about that. So getting the experience of being around other property managers, learning what they're doing. NARPM's a great organization. The issue there is that okay, that takes some time, right, to really absorb it all, and it can be expensive because you're going to different conferences and things like that. So, but NARPM overall is a great way to go. The other thing I'd probably take a look at doing is hiring some kind of a mentor or somebody who's been through it before. It's a great approach. I do that for some property management companies myself now in semi-retirement. But for someone who's starting out, that can be expensive, right? So, you want to slow down, you want to study, join NARPM, maybe hire a mentor, but that can be expensive. So some of these are the reasons why we started Property Management Blueprint to offer this new course we're talking about, right? So somebody could have a quick way and an inexpensive way to kind of get that bird's eye view I was talking about and sort of understand the lay of the land before jumping into the property management industry.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a personally a big believer in learning from people that have walked the path that you want to go down. So
Yeah.
for Upkeep Media, when we started our business, that's exactly how we started. We basically purchased a course, started to learn on our own, and eventually from there you continue to learn. So it's not that that course taught me everything I need to know to run a business, but it set us down the right path. And when you're building business, it's like building blocks. So it's like, okay, this helped me get to level one. Now I need to get to level two. What's the next thing I need to learn to go to level two? And then from there to level three and so forth.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, my phone's going out here. I That's interesting. You call building blocks. I always used to equate it to, going upstairs, right? You go up one step and you kind of hit a spot where, oh, now what, right? You hit a wall and then you take another leap, and it's a series of kind of quantum leaps as you learn things as you're going along the way.
Exactly. So let's go to day one. You've now
Hmm.
at least got the idea. You're like, okay, I definitely can do this property management thing. I know this is something I want to do. Obviously, to actually have a business, you need someone that is going to pay you, right? You
Yeah,
can have
yeah,
all of the procedures in the world, but if you don't have any properties to manage, you don't really have a property management company yet.
yep.
What would be the first things you would do to try and get properties?
Well, I think even if you're a brand new startup, um, you're going to need some kind of an online presence. I mean, you just have to have it. And Stephen, I know this is your expertise, and you can probably talk a lot about this as well. But in my case, I mean, I built a website out of my spare bedroom before I launched, and then one day, nervous as heck, I pushed the button to turn it live, and I emailed all my friends and said, "Hey, guess what? I just started a property management company." Right? And it was like I remember, okay, am I going to do this? Am I going to really, is this going to be me moving forward? Right? There was this new launch into this brand new area that and I remember that first morning where I pushed the button, I said, okay, it's a go, right? And immediately started getting, responses and people coming to us just because of that.
Yeah.
Um, excuse me. And then the other thing I started doing is networking with realtors right away, getting out there, making sure people knew who we were, in our areas. I'm sure they have in other geographies and other cities these broker caravans. Every Tuesday, people get in their car, they go around to all the different properties that are on the market. And before that, they have a pitch session. So I started going to the pitch sessions and pitching North County Property Group. And I think in that first stage, I mean, we were just looking, I'd say we, because I had one employee, it was me and one other person. We were just looking for enough of a core of customers or clients that we could kind of have a proof of concept, right? We wanted to make sure that it was going to work before we launched forward and really continued to roll. And based on that, we were able to get, I think we got 15 clients pretty fast, and and then that was it, right? We took off from there.
Yeah. So just to kind of summarize, first thing you'd get a website. I mean, in today's day and age, a website is kind of the bare minimum you need to look like you at least have a company, right? If
Yeah.
someone looks you up online and there's nothing, they can't find anything, right away, kind of our card goes up. So it doesn't have to be
Hmm.
a super fancy website, just get something up. And then from there, start reaching out to everyone in your network. So literally go through your phone book, anyone that you know, let them know you have a property management company. If you're on Facebook, go post about the fact that you offer property management services. Then step two is once you've reached out to everyone in your network, and I'd suggest doing that a few times. Step two, start networking with real estate agents. Go to events that real estate agents are at and just get your name out there. Let them know you offer property management services. Try to build a relationship with them so that when they do speak with an investor or someone with a rental property or someone purchasing a rental property, they would refer that back to you. Do
And
you
offer some kind of a referral program, right? Where if they do that and we sign the client, then they get a bonus out of that.
got it? So when starting out, you mentioned North County.
Hmm.
How important is the area that you choose to offer property management services in?
Well, I think it's huge. In our course, I get into this section called "Hey, what is your why?" Right? What is it that gets you up out of bed and excites you? Right? And in property management, you can take that and drill it down a little bit further. Like I have a passion for coastal properties. That's where I live. I live in the city of Del Mar, a few blocks from the beach, and I know this area really well. It's high value. It's high value real estate, and I learned very early on that the worst properties in your portfolio, because we signed a few, dogs in the early day, the worst properties in your portfolio can obviously take the most time, right? So it's this kind of 80-20 rule. So early on, I just made the conscious decision, okay, I'm going to focus on North County and what I call the higher end of the market. Things have continued to escalate in terms of rent rates, but at the time that meant rent rates of 3,500 and above. And why is that significant? Well, you don't need as many properties in your portfolio to be profitable and hit some of these numbers. I mean, we had the highest value of average rental property under management of any property management company in San Diego, and that was by design. I know you and I have talked about this a lot in the past, and we get into this a little bit in the course, but that was just the niche that I decided to focus on because also I didn't see anybody in the North County area doing that, right? Everybody was more like San Diego proper, high high volume, high numbers, but really much lower rent rates, and that never made sense to me.
Got it. Got it. And ultimately, by being kind of the big fish in the small pond, we'll say, compared to San Diego, it allows you to kind of like speak the language of people that own properties in that market better, if I had to imagine.
Oh, 100%, especially because there are different in North County, San Diego, it's a series of smaller towns, right? And they each have their own local ordinances regarding rentals and where you can do it, and all these different things. You have, for those who know the area, there's Del Mar and Solana Beach and Encinitas and Carlsbad and all these coastal towns that go up, and you have to be an expert basically in each one, right? So that was easier to do for me because I had been in the area for a long, long time, and everybody else was kind of focused down in San Diego Metro.
Sense. So aside from niching down and how to get the clients, what tools do you think are super important when you're first starting? Tools or software?
That's a really good question. Things have changed a lot since I got into it, 15 years ago. I mean, back when I got into it, the whole notion of kind of property management software, a PMS, was just starting to emerge. I mean, it was out there, but a lot of companies were still using notepads and sticky notes and taking messages when people call in, that kind of thing. And the whole concept of having software to power your business was relatively new. But in today's day and age, you have to have that. I mean, it's an absolute mandatory. Otherwise, otherwise it'll be difficult to provide the same level of service as your competition. So there are a bunch of them out there, right? There's Folio, Buildium, Rentvine. There's a bunch of different ones out there, but that's, I think, the very first step, right? If you're going to invest in something right out of the gates, that's probably it.
Yeah.
The other thing would be to have a Doesn't have to be fancy, but some kind of a CRM system that allows you to track all your clients and customers and incoming leads. I mean, that's really, really important and provide very quick response when you do get a lead. That's the other critical thing about it.
Yeah, especially if you're going to be out there networking, like your realtors that you're speaking with, those are leads,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? If you're going to multiple event meetups per month, you're going to forget names of people. So
Hmm.
keeping track of those. One thing I just want to add on there, because we see it all the time with newer companies, is they invest in like a really fancy CRM that is primarily built for companies of a much larger size. When you're
Hmm.
starting off, you don't need a really fancy CRM. You need something very simple. You can even make it work from an Excel sheet if you're super organized.
Sure.
Don't get too caught up in adding on these like fancy tools, and you're going to feel like that's going to make a huge difference because those companies invest a ton of money and do a great job of making you believe that that's really going to move the needle. But the truth is that's like to stay organized. And that's kind of like the most important thing. It's like having a CRM that's going to allow you to put in the basic contact info, to have basic notes on that individual. And later down the road, as your business scales, that's when, let's say, the more fancy CRMs are really going to come into play.
Sure. Sure. Also, don't forget about the potential tenants you're tracking, right? We always put them in CRMs as well. I remember I had one client and he was complaining that it was taking too long to rent his place. And I was explaining to him, hey, listen, the people that view your house, they're complaining about these different items. And so I was trying to articulate why we were having a problem. And he said, wow, I find that really hard to believe. Can you give me the name of some of these applicants, right? Or these people who are calling. And I was embarrassed to say, we weren't saving them in a CRA. That was kind of a wake up call, like, oh my God, rookie maneuver, obviously. But anyway, that was just kind of a funny story about why we started also tracking all the tenants that were inquiring, because you can go back to them, right, at a later date and keep them apprised of what's going on with your business and the rental properties
Yeah,
that you have
no,
available.
that's a good point. Not something
Yeah.
I think of, so it's
Yeah.
interesting. Well, I guess going back to realtors, did you ever do any drop-ins? Like, was it just going to events, or would you actually stop by their like a real estate brokerage and let them know about your company? Because I've heard other people do that, but I was just wondering what your approach is for that.
Yeah, I tried that and I found it to be not the best use of my time because the reception that you get is, mixed, right? Sometimes, oh yeah, come on in and tell us. Other times it's like, okay, dude, just stop right there. We're busy. Come back another day. And also, don't forget, I mean, I was running the company. So, I mean, I think it's more of a practice of business development managers, maybe as time goes by, where they have someone who can specifically be out networking like 100% of their time. For me, I think I told you that there was the broker caravans. So you have realtors that are going there pitching their properties, and then after that, we all jump in our cars and we travel around to the different properties that are for sale, and the realtors are there, right, hosting this open house. So I did that and one on one, right? I'd go around, hey, here's who I am, property management company. If for whatever reason you're having a difficult time selling, you might want to consider talking to your client about renting the property. We can help, right? Leave my card. And that way I built a network of probably, I don't know, 500 realtors who I was in touch with and who knew me, right? And knew about North County Property Group.
That's a good amount of realtors also.
Mm-hmm.
500
Yeah,
people.
the other thing that was shocking to some of these realtors and also at these pitch sessions is I started pitching our rental properties. It's very rare. That hardly ever happens, but I started doing it just again to have that FaceTime because then I could stand up, pitch my rental property and say a little bit about the company, get a little stage time. That was really the purpose of doing it.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
So, a side question for you. Inside of Property Management Blueprint, you talk a little bit about different pricing models.
Hmm.
Let's say you're starting from scratch in this scenario, right? What type of
Right.
pricing model would you usually go with?
Well, this is where I probably wasted a couple years of my active time that I could have corrected had I maybe taken a little bit more time up front or listened to my NARPM friends. So, I mean, obviously, you need to understand what's going on in your community or your area with your competition. So, you need to understand the competition's pricing very, very well. I think the big mistake that I made early on, and this is very common among property management companies that start out, thinking that the property management fee is going to be the one income that's going to, I think, pay for all the bills, right? Keep the lights on, pay for everybody's, right? And what I learned over the course of kind of struggling for the first 2 years with profitability is that the property management fee alone isn't going to cut it, you know. And I developed a model later on as I progressed with the company that, hey, we wanted that to be about 50%, right? The rest of the income needs to be through what we call ancillary income, all these other items that you can charge for along the way. So I learned that, and that was a hard thing to learn. And I think a lot of property management companies out there are still struggling with that aspect because a lot of the clients think, well, you should be doing this for free because you're my property manager, and I'm paying you this fee. When in fact, there are things you could tack on for both on the landlord and the tenant side. But I think you sort of have to understand the competition in your particular area. There are some areas I know here in California where a community will be filled with a bunch of managers who charge a flat fee, right? So, hey, I'll manage your property, $150 a month, whatever that might be. Others are charging a percentage. I mean, these are the two basic fundamental models that we talk about in the course too, Stephen. So do you charge a flat fee? Do you charge a percentage? Do you do a hybrid? All these kind of things. So understanding and listening to someone who can help you kind of set up that pricing structure is hugely important. In today's day and age, a lot of companies are now offering tiers. So there's kind of the lower end model. Maybe it's 6-7%, but you're paying for everything additional. Then if you pay like maybe it's the silver program, right? And you're paying a little bit more in terms of your property management fee, but you get more built into that, if you know what I mean. And then there's a premium. So a lot of companies did that. Ultimately, that's what we went to, kind of a good, better, best program. But we believed in keeping it simple because a lot of these get really complicated, and you want to keep it so that people can understand your pricing structure.
Okay. Uh, you mentioned that for North County Property Group, you had employee one out of the gate.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do you think it makes sense to hire an employee for your property management company? Would you recommend from day one, or like what would you recommend on that if you were starting over again today?
Yeah, I guess it depends upon your appetite and your willingness to kind of float the company for a while you're building up a team, because you have to have either income or you have to have the resources to pay these people. Um, I think one of the other differences in today's market compared to when I started 15 years ago now, remember, 15 years ago, remote work wasn't necessarily a thing, or it was a thing maybe, but it wasn't to the degree that it is today. So I felt we needed an office. Like a lot of property management companies today, especially after the pandemic, don't have an office. So that's a huge chunk of overhead that I invested in that looking back on it, I probably could have invested in people instead and just gone virtual from the very start. So, when and how, I mean, it really depends upon the revenue you're generating or the resources you have. But I mean, I started off with one person who was a property manager, then eventually we hired a receptionist and just kind of built step by step. But those are some of the toughest decisions you need to make early on is do I hire people, or gee, do I hire contractors or do I hire agents to do all these kind of things? And we talk about all this in the course.
Yeah. Um, so let's go back to the business development side a little bit. Or let's go with the market
Mm-hmm.
side. So you mentioned day one, you'd get a website put up so that at least when you reach out to people, there's something for them to see so that it looks like you're actually a business.
Yeah.
Other things would you do from an online, or would you do from an online perspective for your business? You have a website. I don't know. Would you create a Google business profile? What would that look like?
Yes. The Google algorithms obviously change on a semi-regular basis, right? So you need to understand what those are. So eventually to have somebody like yourself who can do your SEO and some of that for you is really, really important. In the early days, I was doing it all myself. I will tell you what I wouldn't do, which we did, and I wasted a lot of money, was Google AdWords. And there's another website called All Property Management, which seems to be the hub for discount property managers getting leads. Because it just, yeah, the leads were awful, most of them. And, it's always hard to look at your Google AdWords metrics and see, hey, all these people are clicking on these ads, but nobody's calling. I don't want to say nobody, but I mean, that's probably one of the most expensive ways of advertising that where you can go, right? So we were spending, in some cases, thousands of dollars a month and only getting a couple of leads out of it. So that was really, really tough. By far, the better way is to focus on, getting your search engine optimization firing so that when people Google property management, in my case, Del Mar or North County, San Diego, you pop up, right? So some of those keywords are easier to establish in a niche market where you don't have as much competition versus, kind of in my case, the San Diego area. So I found the organic leads that came in from people finding us the old fashioned way, doing a Google search or whatnot, far superior. And in some cases, they had already made their decision by the time they even called because they'd looked at other property management companies online. And so I think those are some of the things that are important to do and some of the things where I probably made some mistakes that I wouldn't do necessarily until maybe the company's a little bigger.
Yeah, I'll just touch on that a little bit because we do
Yeah.
see this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with Google Ads is it's the easiest place for anyone that's starting out to advertise, right? At the
100%.
at the most basic level, it's very easy to understand. Okay, I pay, my ad shows up, people know I'm out there. The issue is in property management because it's a lower barrier to entry industry, right? It's not like being
Mm-hmm.
a medical office where you need to become a doctor to be able to open that.
Right. Right.
This is an industry where, let's call it the average person can actually start a property management company if they want. Doesn't mean they're going to do
Mm-hmm.
a good job of it, but they can start one at least. If everyone is able to start it and Google Ads is the easiest place for them to get exposure, that means everyone's doing it. If
Mm-hmm.
everyone's doing it, the way it works is the bidding system. The more
That's right.
people that are in the market to run ads, the higher that cost per click is going to cost you. So what's happened is the cost per click for property management has become extremely high. Then couple that with the fact that in property management, you have two sets of people that are searching for you. You actually have three, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll say there's owners, there's tenants, and there's third, we'll say is vendors sometimes too.
Yep.
There are way more tenants out there than there are owners. What's going to happen is those tenants are going to click on your ad that has a high cost per click, and it's going to run through your ad budget really quickly. So Google Ads for a property management company that's just starting out is a very likely way to run out of any cash flow that you do have at this point in time.
I completely agree. Right. I mean, believe me, I tried it multiple times. Right. And tough way to go.
Yeah, exactly. So one thing I would say is though, when you're just starting out, it's not that you have to start investing in your online marketing right away. If you want to go the bootstrap route and you want to really, let's say, get boots on the ground where you're going to networking events, you're meeting realtors, you're constantly out there trying to acquire new business. What you should at least be doing from the online standpoint is creating a Google business profile and start acquiring reviews. Your online reviews
Yes.
are crucial. You used to do a really good job of this when you were
Well,
running.
I learned it over the course of time, right? And you helped guide us on that when we were working together when with North County Property Group. But it took a while to understand that even a bad review sometimes is better than no reviews at all.
Yeah, it helps make you look established. And people don't want to do business with a company that's got no experience at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. That's
So
by the way, what sorry to interrupt, but one of the best compliments I ever got was I went to a new client meeting, somebody called and they said, hey, the reason we liked you is you had somebody leave you a bad review, and we were so impressed with the way you responded to that negative review that we said, "Hey, this is the company we want to hire." So, case in point, even bad reviews, depending upon how you answer them, and you should always respond to every review, can go a long way towards building clientele because they want to see that you're professional and that you know how to handle difficult people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's you can spin a bad review to be an asset for your business in property management.
100%. That's right. Yeah.
So anyway, at the bare minimum, have a website so that your domain at least starts to index in Google. That will help you later down the road when you are ready to start investing in your online marketing. And then get your Google business profile set up and start acquiring reviews from day one.
Mhm.
Whatever it is you need to do to get your reviews higher, like put in the effort. If that means you have to handhold an owner, do it. If that means you have to call the tenants personally and beg them to leave that review, do it. Because those reviews are going to pay dividends for the lifetime of your business.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
So let's spin it and let's go with if there was one single biggest piece of advice for someone starting a property management company, what would that be?
I think I've kind of in some ways already um, stated that up front when we started. And that was my advice would be, hey, slow down. And by slow down, I don't mean like take 2 years to start your property management company, but I mean slow down to the point where you can get a big picture of what exactly it is that you're jumping into. Right. And make sure it's right for you. Is this going to float your boat? Is this going to be something that's going to get you up out of bed every morning? And we talk about this a little bit in the course that, hey, you got to make sure this is right for you. It can be a conflict laden business. It can have, a lot of challenges, but for the right individuals who are very customer service and collaboratively oriented, it's a fantastic business and a way to have recurring revenue for many, many years. Right. But it's got to be right for you. And then, find something that you can sink your teeth in that helps you attain that big picture view. NARPM is a good way to do it, but NARPM only has chapters in certain cities. You might be in an area where you don't have a NARPM chapter, so you're waiting for the national convention to come around, which is expensive to attend because you got to travel there, you got to buy your ticket, all that kind of stuff. So again, it may not be fast enough, through NARPM, or then as we talked about, bringing on a mentor who can kind of guide you. Mentors can be expensive. I mean, I charge $300 an hour, right? And so for some people, that's not a big deal. Other people are like, wow, I can't afford that because, I can't afford this one-on-one coaching all the time. So anyway, it really depends upon you. But I think that's one of the reasons why we started this course is to provide kind of a place where people could get a picture of what the property management industry is like, what it takes, what the steps are, those kind of things. When I was getting into it, yeah, the California Association of Realtors offered some basic property management courses, but super rudimentary. I mean, mostly talking about trust accounting, things like that, that are required to stay in regulation, but not really about okay, the ins and outs of running a company, right, and what the pitfalls are.
Yeah, that's it. Um,
Yeah.
like if you found this helpful and you want a complete step-by-step system to start and grow your property management company, I highly recommend you check out Property Management Blueprint. Go to propertymanagementblueprint.co. We basically built it to give you everything you need to get to 100 doors faster and avoid costly mistakes that Bob and many other property management companies have made when they were starting up their property management company. So if you are under 100 doors right now and you want to learn from someone that's already walked the path that you're looking to go down, check it out, propertymanagementblueprint.co. Bob, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll speak soon.
Always great, Stephen. Thanks for having me today.